So, Skin on Skin. If you don't already know who he is, he's a music producer and DJ that's very well known for his style of mixing house and techno together, and sometimes even sprinkling a little bit of UK drill in there. Here's some of the tracks he made. Skin on Skin has played hundreds of DJ sets all around the world. He has collaborated with legends such as Molgrab, and he has even started his own label. I think it's safe to say that he knows what he's doing. And me, being the fanboy that I am, have analyzed every single aspect of some of his tracks and even remade them. So today we'll be exploring the genius of Skin on Skin. We're going to talk about his mindset, how he makes his arrangements so good, and in the end, I'll show you some practical techniques that Skin on Skin uses, which you can apply directly to your own music. But let's lay down a general formula first. A typical Skin on Skin track consists of a 4-on-the-floor kick, a plucky house bass, some groovy hats, sometimes maybe a synth, and most importantly, the vocals, which are the core of his tracks. They're usually spoken words and they have a very rhythmical property to them. And surprisingly, he doesn't use that many effects, which is the first thing that we can learn from him, which is that less is more. Skin on Skin's music is really simple. He's such a minimalist and I just love it. I was actually shocked at how simple his tracks are. When I was remaking his song Slow It Down, I couldn't actually believe that there's only 6 elements in the whole track. There's a kick, a bass, a shaker, an open hat, then there's the synth and the vocals. Nothing more. And in his other song, For the Shot, he doesn't even have a synth. Like, what the fuck? But the thing is, that Skin on Skin makes all of these elements perfect. Come to think of it, if you only had 6 elements in your entire song, you'd make sure they sound as good as possible. So try keeping that in mind the next time you sit down to make some music. Maybe even limit yourself to using only 6 tracks. Limitations breed creativity. That's a quote from someone smart, I think. Maybe. Right, so as I already mentioned, Skin on Skin doesn't really use effects that much, yet his arrangements definitely feel much more complex than if they were to have just 6 elements. And instead of using effects, he uses a couple of different techniques to make his arrangements engaging, which is another lesson that every producer should take home today. And namely, it's to make the most of what you already have. Yes, his tracks have very few elements, but the ways he uses them are extremely varied. And I've broken this into 3 categories for you. How he alters his drums, his synths, and his vocals. So, for the drums, he very often takes away the kick just before something new happens in the track, usually at the end of a 16-bar phrase. Sometimes, when the kick stops playing, he introduces a new element prematurely, like he did right here with the open hat. Basically, Skin on Skin adds variation to his tracks through drums by adding or deleting the drums in crucial moments, thus making the most of what he already has. And now for the synths. Skin on Skin likes to make little variations in the synth or bass patterns which give the arrangements that extra oomph. For example, in Slow It Down, the synth stutters just before the drop. Or in his track For the Shot, the bass has one additional high note in the breaks of the song. Here he doesn't have it. And here it starts to appear. So again, he finds crucial moments in the song and accentuates them. He does so using a variation in the synth that he already has. The synth stuttering just before the drop adds the extra tension, and the higher bass note in the break differentiates the break from the drop. And now for the vocals. And I just love how he switches up with the vocals. I really find them the most fascinating. So first off, Skin on Skin very often repurposes the vocals as a crash effect. And he does so by adding delay to it. And I mean a lot of delay to it. He uses a lot of feedback. I'll show you an example. He uses the vocal to fill up the frequency spectrum and slow it down when the synth is slowly being introduced through a low-pass filter. And without the delay vocals, the break would feel empty.
high speed, baby, calm it down, can you keep up with me?
There's just something missing, isn't there? So that's the first way he alters the vocals. Now, the second way, I just love it so much. He uses different parts of the same vocal he already has to accentuate different groovy rhythms. And for the shot, this is so beautifully demonstrated. There's this sections with the vocals in full. And then there's this section with just a snippet of the vocal. And it's so groovy. I warned you that I was a fanboy. So small things like these make his tracks feel much more alive. It almost feels like he's right there jamming, making the changes in real time, you know? So definitely keep that in mind. Make the most of the elements that you already have. Try to think of ways that you could repurpose them. It leads to results you probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Limitations breed creativity. That's a quote. Awesome. I hope this is valuable so far. If it is, let me know. You know what to do. And now it's time for a speed round. I will show you a couple of production techniques that I've noticed Skin on Skin use. And I will quickly go through each element and how he makes it. Kick. So for the kick, it's just a simple punchy 4 on the floor rhythm. And I've already mentioned how he takes away the kick sometimes to create tension before another section of the song. But what I haven't mentioned is that he likes to introduce some occasional kick accents in his kick patterns. In Slow It Down, the kick pattern is 4 bars long, with one kick on the 3rd step at the end of 2 bars, and one additional kick on the 4th step at the end of the other 2 bars. Next up, hats and shakers. Now, for his hats, there's one thing Skin on Skin always does, and that is apply groove to them. This way, they aren't so robotically quantized to the grid, and they feel more human. In Ableton, you can apply a groove from the groove pool right here, just by dragging the groove onto the pattern, or you could just drag the individual notes slightly off grid. Now for the bass. Skin on Skin loves to use a plucky sounding bass, and he almost always uses a dotted rhythm on it. And if you don't know what a dotted rhythm is, it just means that there's 2 16th notes between each note. And here's what that feels like. But Skin on Skin really likes to alter between the dotted rhythm and 8th notes. So here's what that feels like. And now for the synth. This is a synth sample from Rave Generator. And he used the pitch shifting effect at the end of the phrase, which is much cooler than drawing in a separate note. Last but not least, the vocals. I've already mentioned him using delay on his vocals to create a crashing sort of effect, but he also uses a delay on his vocals casually to fill up the spaces between the phrases. And in this case, the delay is set to 8 steps.
Can you keep up with me, slow it down, high speed, baby, calm it down.
So, these were some of the techniques he uses to make his patterns. But there's one thing that all of his patterns have in common. There's a certain rule, a principle, that Skin on Skin uses to create every single one of his patterns. And to find out what that is, watch this video. I will see you there.